All right, we are back from our short detour where we learned more about Kingfisher and are now ready to learn how to fetch documents from our Firestore database. So there are several methods to fetch documents. You can fetch a single document by its ID, like we see right here. You can fetch all the documents in a collection, and you can fetch then listen for changes to a document or collection and receive updates when the data changes. And for all those methods, you can also do filters or specific queries. We are going to go over each of these methods, starting with fetching a single document by its ID. So we have here in our console this document, which is in our collection called categories. So let's fetch it, parse it, and display it. So I'm going to jump back into Xcode, and we are going to be in our home VC, and we are going to create a function here called fetch document. Okay. And this is going to be kind of a throwaway function. We're not going to continue using this, but like I said, we're going to go through each of these methods just so you have a strong foundation of how to work with Firestore. Now, the first thing that you need when working with Firestore is a reference to the document or collection you want to fetch data from. You need to know where to tell Firestore to get its data. And we do that by creating a reference. So I'm going to say let docref equal to, and then we start out with, I think I'm going to need to import Firestore here. Import Firestore. Oh, looks like that's already covered under Firebase. So I'm going to say let docref equal firestore dot firestore. Okay, so this is the singleton that creates, caches, and returns a Firestore singleton using the default Fire app. It says that each subsequent invocation returns the same Firestore object. Okay, so this right here, firestore.firestore, is kind of equivalent to just this root database, not the categories per se, just getting a reference to our Firestore database. Then what we need to do next is tell it which category to look for and then which document to look for. Remember, it's always that same pattern: category, document, collection, document, collection, document. Okay, so let's go here. And we do that by saying firestore.firestore.collection. And you'll see here that this is a collection reference, and we can say collection, and then we provide the string for that collection. So collection, and our collection is called categories. So right now this is a collection reference. We want it to be a document reference. So when we add a document here, we can see document, and we have a document path, and this is the one that we want right here. And so the document that we want, if we come back over here, we can grab its ID, copy that, and then jump back into Xcode and paste that right here, okay? So again, what we're doing is we're creating a reference for Firestore to go and fetch from, and we're telling it that it's in our Firestore database, in the collection called categories, and the document that we want has the ID of this right here. And now that we have our document reference, we can go ahead and call the applicable method. So if you do docref dot, you can see that we have several methods here. We have add snapshot listener. So this has to do with the method that I talked about, where you can listen for changes to the document or the collection. And then we have add snapshot listener, we have collection, we have delete. We want get document right here. And then we have a completion, so press enter, and you can see that this is a Fire document snapshot block that provides us in the closure a document snapshot and an error. Okay, so I'm going to call this snap. That is a common abbreviation for the document snapshot that you'll see. And then we have our error. Often you'll see firestore.firestore set as a variable up here at the top. So let's go ahead and do that. You'll see let db equal firestore.firestore, and then we can replace this with just db. That stands for database. All right, so let's take a look at this. So we get this snapshot, okay? So it's a document snapshot. Let's talk a little bit about what this is and take a look at the documentation. So if we go back to Safari, open up a browser, and if you search for FIR, document snapshot Swift, then you'll be able to click right here. And this is going to take us to the documentation. And let me just make sure that we're in the right one. This has all of the classes. Okay, so it took us to the iOS Objective-C one. So if you keep scrolling up, we want the iOS Swift, okay? So they have here the classes, enumeration, type definitions, etc. for each of the products, Firebase Core, Analytics, A/B testing, etc. We want Firebase Firestore, and then classes, and then document snapshot, okay? So this is a good reference for you to bookmark and to come back to when you need to take a look at other Firestore classes like the collection reference, document change, document reference, field values, timestamp. These are all things that we're going to be using. So yeah, let's take a look at document snapshot. Okay, and it says here that a Fire document snapshot contains data read from a document in your Firestore database. The data can be extracted with the data property or by using subscript syntax to access a specific field. Okay, so this data can be extracted by the data property. So we're going to have a data property that contains all of the data from our document. So this data property is going to have as a dictionary all of this data right here, ID, the image URL, etc. So that's the most important part, is knowing that the snapshot has this data property. Some other useful things are if you want to make sure that the document exists, then you can use the .exists property. Let's see here. If you need to grab the document ID from the reference, you can, or from the result, you can get that right here as a document ID property. And yeah, talking more about the data here, it retrieves all fields in the document as an NS dictionary and nil if the document doesn't exist. So that is what we are getting back from this get document function. So let's go back into Xcode. And now that we know all of that, we know that we need to get the data property from this snapshot. So we can say guard let data. So this is, we're unwrapping the optional data from our snap here. So we're going to say guard let data equal snap dot data. And you can see here that it is indeed a dictionary of key string type any. Okay, so snap.data, else we're just going to return. Okay. Now what we want to do is extract all of the data from this data into variables that we can use to create our new category. Okay. So I'm going to say let name equal data, and we just access it just like we would with any dictionary like we've done in the past. And we're going to say let data equal name, and we're going to cast that as a string, and we're going to provide a default value. So if for some reason there isn't a value there, then we'll just cast it as an empty string, or we'll set it to an empty string. And so just to make it clear where I'm getting this is the same key or field as we have in our database right here, name, which is the same as our category model here. So we're going to be grabbing name, ID, image, URL, is active, and timestamp. All right, so jumping back to home VC, let's get the next ones, which is the ID. I'm going to say let ID equal data, and then the key or the field is ID. We're going to cast that as a string and provide a default empty string value. Next up is the image URL. I'm going to say let image URL equal data, and that is image URL. Cast that as a string and provide a default empty string value. Next we have is active. Let is active equal data, and the key is active as a Boolean, default value of true. And then finally our timestamp, let timestamp equal, oh, I got a typo here, let data, there we go. Data, and the key is timestamp as a timestamp. And for default value, we'll just initialize a timestamp of right when this is created. All right, so we have all of our properties that we need to create our new category. So let's do that. I'm going to say let new category equal category.init. And then we just got to put in the variables that we created right here. So name, ID, image URL is active, and timestamp. There we go. So we just initialized a new instance of our category struct. And with that, we can add it to our categories array that we have up here. And so we'll say self.categories.append new element, and that new element is the new category. And then all we need to do is reload our collection data. So I'm going to say self.collectionView.reload data. And that should work for us. Let's not forget to call the function, which is a common thing to forget, fetch document. All right, so upon view.did_load, we're going to go through, we're going to create our dummy category here. We're going to add it. Then we're going to reload that data, and then we're going to call fetch document, which is going to go and fetch this document with this ID from the Firestore database inside of the collection called categories, and the document with this ID. If it's successful, we are going to get back a snapshot and optionally an error. We're not really worrying about the error right now. But then we grab the data from the snapshot, parse it out into our variables that we need, create a new category, add that category to our categories array, and then reload the collection views data. All right, so let's check this out. I'm gonna run it. And we got a crash. Let's see what's going on. Coming up here. Interesting. Looks like we have not initialized the Firebase app. Let's check that. Coming here to our app delegate. We have indeed initialized our app. Okay, so the problem is right here with the db equals firestore.firestore. This is trying to initialize before the app delegate.swift has finished doing its thing with firebase app.configure. And so what we need to do is instead make this of type firestore, and then in view.did_load, we initialize it. So we'll say db equals firestore.firestore. And that should work for us. Gonna save that. Oh, my bad. That should be var database. There we go. Save that and run it. Oh, hoo-hoo. Hey, there we go. There is our new category that we are fetching directly from Firestore. Very cool. All right, so just to recap, when we are using Firestore to fetch documents, we first need to tell it where to fetch it from. And we start out by kind of creating a chain of collection document, starting with the base Firestore. Then we say collection, give it the name, then document, give it the name. And if you have nested collections further on, then you just keep on going like this, collection, and then so on and so forth. Once you have that reference, you say get document, and you are returned a snapshot which contains the data in a dictionary format that represents, or that is, the data that you have in that Firestore document. From there, you can parse out the information that you need, create our new category, append it, and then reload our data, and we end up with this. All right, so hope that is clear. If you have any questions, let me know. In the next one, we are going to take a look at some of the other methods, so I will see you there.